poor nurse spent her last $5 to buy a drink. Unaware her blind date was the millionaire CEO. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into the story. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to make a tough choice, where every dollar counted? Emily was just like you. Let me tell you how a simple act of kindness changed her life in ways she never expected. Emily had always been the kind of person to put others first. She worked long shifts as a nurse, caring for patients, often forgetting to take care of herself. That particular evening, as the cold winds of winter blew through the city streets, Emily was about to make a decision that would alter the course of her life. It was a blind date, one set up by her best friend, Jenny. Emily had been skeptical at first. A dinner with a stranger? But Jenny promised that he was nice and would be worth the risk. As she walked into the cafe, Emily felt the familiar sense of unease settle in. Her outfit, an old second-hand dress and worn-out shoes, felt out of place in the fancy establishment. The warm glow of the restaurant seemed to mock her modest appearance. She could feel the eyes of the other patrons, judging her quietly, but she brushed it off. Tonight was not about them. It was about her. As she scanned the room for her date, she couldn't help but feel nervous. Her fingers fidgeted with the crumpled $5 bill she had left in her pocket. Her bank account was practically empty. She could barely afford her bus fare home, let alone a meal. Then, she saw him, sitting alone at a table, looking around, clearly waiting for her. He was dressed in a sharp suit, his dark hair neatly styled, and his expression seemed friendly. She took a deep breath, approached the table, and smiled. "Hi, you must be Kevin," she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The man looked up, startled, and for a moment, they both stared at each other. Then, he blinked and smiled. "Oh hey, I'm Liam. Not Kevin, but close enough." Emily chuckled nervously, realizing her mistake. But he didn't seem upset. Instead, he gestured for her to sit. They both laughed awkwardly at the misunderstanding, and soon, the conversation began to flow. Emily, in her nervousness, kept talking to fill the silence. She told him about her job, her struggles, and her dreams of one day opening a small art studio. She spoke of her mother, who was sick and required constant care, and how every day felt like a balancing act between her job and her family's needs. Liam listened intently, nodding along, but saying very little. Emily didn't mind. She needed to vent, and he was a willing ear. As they talked, she noticed how different he seemed. There was an air of calm around him, a quiet strength that made her feel at ease. She had been nervous about the blind date, but now, she was starting to feel comfortable in his company. Just as she was about to ask him more about his work, her phone buzzed. "Hey Emily, where are you?" "I'm at table 7, looking forward to meeting you." "Kevin." Her heart sank. She had been sitting at the wrong table all along. She looked at Liam, her face turning crimson. "I'm so sorry," she stammered. "I thought you were someone else. I've got to go." Without waiting for his response, she grabbed her coat and rushed out of the cafe, leaving behind a confused and slightly bemused Liam. She barely made it to the door before she heard him call out, "Hey, it's okay. Don't worry about it." But Emily was already gone, her face flushed with embarrassment. She stepped out into the cold, the wind biting at her face. As she walked to the bus stop, her mind raced. She had just made a fool of herself. And yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that something about Liam felt different. Maybe, just maybe, this mistake was the start of something unexpected. She hadn't expected anything from tonight. But as she caught her breath on the street corner, she realized that she might have just met the one person who could change her life. The next morning, Emily's phone buzzed again, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a message from an unknown number. "Hi Emily, it's Liam from last night. I know things got a little awkward, but I'd really like to see you again. Would you be up for coffee sometime?" She stared at the message, her heart racing. She had barely slept, replaying every embarrassing moment from the previous evening. But there was something about his message, something genuine, that made her hesitate. She looked at her reflection in the cracked mirror above her sink, still in her scrubs, hair pulled back in a messy bun. She had nothing to lose, right? The worst that could happen was more awkwardness. She quickly typed, "Sure, coffee sounds good." A few moments later, she received a reply. "Great, I'll pick you up at 3." Emily smiled nervously, wondering what on earth she had gotten herself into. As the day passed, she tried to push the thoughts of Liam from her mind, focusing instead on her work. The hospital was a whirlwind as usual, with patients coming in and out, and the steady hum of medical equipment filling the air. But her mind kept drifting back to him, to his calm presence, to the way he had listened to her. She didn't realize how much she had needed someone to listen until he had been there. At 3 o'clock sharp, Emily stepped outside of her apartment building and found a sleek black car waiting for her. The driver gave her a polite smile as he opened the door, and Emily hesitated before getting in. She had to admit, the whole thing felt surreal. She had been a nurse for years, dealing with life-and-death situations every day, but this felt different. This felt like a dream she wasn't sure she was ready for. Liam was already sitting in the back seat, looking casual yet composed in a simple navy jacket and jeans. He stood up when he saw her, his eyes lighting up with a warm smile that made Emily's heart flutter. "Hey, Emily," he greeted her. "I hope I didn't make you feel uncomfortable last night." Emily felt her cheeks flush, but she smiled, shaking her head. "No, not at all. I was just a little embarrassed." "It's okay. I get it," he said with a chuckle. "But I really am glad we're doing this." The drive to the cafe was filled with light conversation. They talked about everything and nothing, her job as a nurse, his work in the tech industry, their favorite movies, and the little things that made them laugh. As they arrived, Liam opened the door for her and led her inside. The cafe was cozy, with warm lights spilling from the windows and the smell of freshly brewed coffee in the air. Emily felt a wave of nervousness wash over her again, but she pushed it aside. They sat at a quiet corner table, away from the hustle and bustle of the cafe, and ordered their drinks. When the coffee arrived, Emily stirred hers absent-mindedly, trying to think of something to say. It felt so different from last night, when she had been rambling nervously to fill the silence. This time, there was a calmness, a connection that hadn't been there before. "So, tell me more about you," Liam said, his voice low but warm. "What's your dream, Emily?" Emily hesitated, unsure if she should share something so personal. But something about Liam made her feel safe, made her feel like it was okay to be open. "I've always wanted to open an art studio," she said finally. "I love painting, but I never had the time to really pursue it." Liam's expression softened as he listened. "That sounds amazing," he said. "You should do it. Don't let anything hold you back." Emily blinked in surprise. She hadn't expected such encouragement, especially from someone like him. It made her feel seen, heard in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. As they talked, Emily felt her walls slowly start to come down. She was beginning to realize that this wasn't just a simple blind date. Something more was happening, something that made her feel alive in a way she hadn't in years. By the time they finished their coffee, Emily was no longer focused on the awkwardness of their first meeting. She was simply enjoying being in Liam's company. But when they stood up to leave, Liam surprised her once again. "I'd like to help you with your art studio," he said, his voice sincere. "I know it's a big dream, but if you want, I can help you get started. Maybe with funding or connections. Whatever you need." Emily's eyes widened, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "What? You don't have to do that," she protested. "I'm not asking for handouts." "I know you're not," Liam said gently. "But I believe in you. And sometimes, the right people come into our lives at the right time. Maybe this is the right time for you." Emily was speechless. Her mind raced, trying to process everything that had just happened. Here she was, a nurse with no money, no big dreams, suddenly being offered help from someone who had the means to change everything. She had no idea what to say, but she felt a deep sense of gratitude. As they walked out of the cafe, she realized that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one she never could have imagined. She had taken a chance on a blind date, and now, she was about to take a leap into a new world, one full of possibilities. The next few weeks passed in a blur for Emily. She couldn't believe the sudden turn of events in her life. Liam had kept his word. He had connected her with a few artists he knew and had helped her secure a small grant to start her art studio. What once seemed like an impossible dream now felt within reach. Every time she thought about it, her heart raced with excitement and disbelief. She had been so used to struggling, to working long hours just to make ends meet, that the idea of pursuing something she loved seemed like a fantasy. But with Liam's help, it was starting to become a reality. Despite her excitement, Emily was hesitant. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was still not on the same level as Liam. His world seemed so different from hers, his penthouse apartment, his expensive suits, and his connections in high places. She had always prided herself on being independent, on earning everything she had. But now she was starting to rely on Liam more than she ever thought she would. One evening, after a long day of work at the hospital, Emily sat at her small kitchen table, staring at the paperwork for her new art studio. The grant money was there, and she had a plan for the next steps, but something didn't feel right. She couldn't help but wonder if she was taking advantage of Liam's generosity. Was this really her dream, or was she just riding the coattails of someone else's success? As she sat there, lost in her thoughts, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. "Hey Emily, I was thinking about you today. How are things going with the studio? If you need anything, let me know. I'm here for you." Emily stared at the message for a moment, unsure of how to respond. She didn't want to seem ungrateful, but she also didn't want to keep relying on Liam. She quickly typed, "Everything's going great. Thank you. I'm just working through the next steps now. I'll let you know if I need anything." She put the phone down, but the nagging feeling didn't go away. Over the next few days, Emily kept busy with her work at the hospital and the preparations for the studio. But her interactions with Liam began to feel different. He was always kind and encouraging, but there was a subtle tension between them now. Emily started to pull away, unsure of how to balance their growing connection with her desire to stand on her own. Then, one day, she received a call from Liam asking if she wanted to join him for dinner at a charity gala he was hosting. Emily hesitated. She hadn't been to one of these fancy events before, and the idea of mingling with the wealthy, with people like Liam, made her feel out of place. But at the same time, she knew this was an opportunity she couldn't pass up. She agreed, telling herself it would be just another event, another chance to learn and grow. That evening, Emily arrived at the venue, feeling nervous but excited. She had borrowed a dress from her friend Jenny and had done her best to make herself look presentable. As she entered the grand ballroom, she was struck by the lavish decor, the glimmer of chandeliers, and the elegance of the guests. Liam was already there, standing by the entrance, looking as handsome as ever in a black tuxedo. He greeted her with a warm smile, taking her hand and guiding her inside. "You look beautiful, Emily," he said, his eyes soft with admiration. Emily felt a wave of warmth flood over her, but also a sense of discomfort. She wasn't used to being in this world, and she wasn't sure she belonged. As the evening went on, Emily found herself talking to people she never thought she would meet, business owners, CEOs, philanthropists, but she felt disconnected, like an outsider trying to fit in. Liam noticed her unease and pulled her aside for a private moment. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked gently. "You seem a little out of place." Emily shrugged, feeling self-conscious. "I'm fine, just not used to all of this," she said, gesturing around the room. Liam nodded, his expression understanding. "I get it, but I want you to know you're exactly where you're meant to be, and I'm proud of everything you're doing with the studio." Emily's heart skipped a beat at his words. She had never expected someone like Liam to care so much about her. It made her realize that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as out of place as she thought. As the evening wore on, Emily began to relax, enjoying the conversations and the atmosphere. Liam introduced her to a few more people, including a well-known art curator who expressed interest in her work. By the end of the night, Emily was overwhelmed with gratitude. She hadn't just been part of the event, she had been part of something meaningful. Liam's generosity, his belief in her, had opened doors she never imagined. But as they left the gala together, Emily couldn't shake the question that had been nagging at her. Was this just another favor from Liam, or was there something more between them? She wasn't sure, but she knew one thing for certain. Her life was changing, and she had no idea where it would take her next. The following weeks seemed to fly by for Emily. She was in the midst of preparing for the grand opening of her art studio, something that seemed impossible just a month ago. She had Liam's support, the funding, and the network she needed to get started. Her dream was no longer just a dream. It was becoming her reality. But as Emily spent more time working on her art studio, she began to notice a shift in her feelings toward Liam. He had been her mentor, her benefactor, and her biggest cheerleader, But somewhere along the way, it started to feel like there was more between them. He wasn't just helping her build her future, he was becoming a part of it. The two of them had been spending more time together, not just discussing business, but enjoying each other's company. Their conversations were easy, and the more they talked, the more Emily realized just how much she valued his presence in her life. But with these feelings came a new set of doubts. Emily had never been the type of person to depend on others, especially not someone like Liam, someone so successful, so polished, so far removed from her world. She couldn't help but wonder if this connection was real, or if she was just another project to him. One evening, as they sat in a cozy cafe near the studio, sipping coffee after a long day of planning, Liam broke the silence. "Emily, I've been meaning to talk to you about something," he said, his voice soft, almost hesitant. Emily looked up, her heart skipping a beat. "What's on your mind?" she asked, trying to hide the nervousness creeping into her chest. Liam paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. "I know I've been helping you with the studio, but there's something I need to tell you. I'm not doing this out of obligation, Emily. I'm doing this because I believe in you, and I want to see you succeed." His words hung in the air, and for a moment, Emily felt like she couldn't breathe. She had always known that Liam was kind, but hearing him say this felt different, more personal, more meaningful. She had no idea how to respond. "I don't want you to think that I'm expecting something in return," Liam continued, his eyes locked onto hers. "But I also need to be honest with you. I care about you, more than just as someone I'm helping with a project." Emily's heart skipped another beat. She had heard those words before, but never in this context, never with this kind of sincerity. She felt her stomach flip, the weight of the moment settling over her. Was this the moment when everything between them would change? Emily swallowed hard, trying to collect her thoughts. I don't know what to say," she admitted. "I didn't expect any of this. I never thought I'd be here, in this position, with you. I've spent my whole life trying to do everything on my own, but now I feel like I'm starting to depend on you." Liam reached across the table and took her hand in his touch warm and comforting. "You don't have to do everything on your own, Emily. You don't have to carry all of it by yourself. I want to help you, not just with your studio, but with whatever comes next for you." The sincerity in his voice made Emily's chest tighten. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe she wasn't just a charity case to him. Maybe he saw her as more than that. Maybe he really did care about her. The conversation shifted to other topics after that, but Emily couldn't shake the words Liam had said. She kept thinking about them as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling. She didn't want to be vulnerable, but something inside her was urging her to trust him. As she drifted off to sleep, Emily realized that this was the first time in a long time she had felt truly seen, truly valued. The next morning, as she walked into her new studio, ready to begin her next chapter, she felt a sense of calm she hadn't known before. The doubts were still there, lingering in the back of her mind, but she was learning to push them aside. She was ready to take the next step, whatever that might look like. She wasn't alone anymore. The next few weeks were a whirlwind for Emily as she focused on opening her art studio. Liam's support had made all the difference, and with his connections, Emily was starting to meet people in the art world who could help her realize her dream. But with every passing day, something inside her grew more complicated. The connection between her and Liam had deepened. What began as simple professional help had blossomed into something more. She had to admit, she was beginning to feel more than just gratitude for him. But those feelings were tangled up with doubt and fear. Was she just another person in his life that he was helping because he could? Or was there something real between them? Emily kept pushing those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the business. Her art studio was coming together, and she had already started planning her first exhibit. Everything felt like it was falling into place. However, the more she worked, the more she felt the weight of her own insecurities. Was she ready for this? Could she live up to the expectations that Liam seemed to have for her? Her doubts were tested when one day, Liam invited her to a special event, a fundraising gala for an art foundation he was involved with. Emily hesitated. She had been to events before, but nothing like this. This was Liam's world, a world she was still learning to navigate. "You don't have to come if you're not ready," Liam had said, his voice gentle. "But I think it would be a good opportunity for you to meet some people who could help your studio." His encouragement made Emily feel both appreciated and small at the same time. She agreed to go, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being out of place. The night of the gala arrived, and Emily stood in front of her bathroom mirror, adjusting the dress she had borrowed from her friend Jenny. It was nice, but still felt too fancy for her. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that this was an opportunity, not a chance to feel insecure. When she arrived at the venue, her nerves were through the roof. The grand ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers, and well-dressed guests mingled with champagne in hand. She felt as though she had stepped into a different world. Liam was already there, of course. He was talking to a group of people when he spotted her across the room. He broke away from the group and made his way toward her with a warm smile. "You look amazing," he said, taking her hand. Emily's cheeks flushed at the compliment, but she tried to hide her discomfort. "I feel a little out of place," she admitted. Liam smiled knowingly. "I get it. But you belong here, Emily. You belong in this world as much as anyone else." His words gave her a small sense of relief, but the doubts still lingered in her mind. Throughout the evening, Emily tried to push past her anxiety and make the most of the situation. She met several influential people in the art world, some of whom expressed interest in her studio. They seemed genuinely interested in her work, and for a brief moment, Emily felt like she had finally found her footing. But as the night wore on, she found herself looking for Liam. She couldn't explain it, but she felt a need to talk to him, to feel grounded again. Finally, she found him standing near a large painting, talking to another guest. When he saw her approach, he smiled and excused himself. "How are you doing?" he asked, his voice full of concern. "It's been great," Emily said, trying to sound confident. "A little overwhelming, but good." Liam studied her for a moment before speaking again. "I know this is all a lot, but I want you to know something. I'm proud of you, Emily. You're doing something amazing. You've worked so hard to get here, and you're not alone in this." Emily looked up at him, her heart skipping a beat. His words were sincere, and for the first time that night, she felt a sense of peace. She had been afraid of being out of place, of not measuring up to the people around her, but in that moment, she realized something important. It wasn't about fitting in. It was about finding her own path. "Thank you," Emily said quietly, her voice trembling with emotion. Liam smiled, his eyes soft. "You've got this, Emily. You just have to trust yourself." The rest of the evening passed in a blur, and as Emily made her way home, she reflected on everything that had happened. The doubts were still there, but she knew that she wasn't alone anymore. Liam's support had meant more to her than she could express, and she realized that she was ready to step into the future, ready to take the risks and face the challenges that came with it. The next morning, as she worked in her studio, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just following in Liam's footsteps anymore. She was carving her own path, one step at a time. Weeks passed, and Emily's art studio began to take shape. The walls were lined with her paintings, the shelves filled with supplies, and for the first time in a long time, Emily felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The dream that once seemed so distant now felt real, and it was all because of Liam. His belief in her had given her the confidence to pursue her passion, to step out of the shadows and create something of her own. But as Emily's studio flourished, so did her feelings for Liam. She tried to keep them under control, reminding herself that he had helped her professionally, and that was all. But every time he showed up at the studio, bringing coffee or simply checking in, her heart fluttered. She knew she couldn't ignore her feelings for much longer. One evening, after another successful meeting with potential clients, Emily found herself sitting alone in the studio, the soft hum of the city outside her window the only sound. She stared at the painting she had been working on for weeks, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Liam. She had told herself she wouldn't let emotions cloud her judgment, but the truth was, she couldn't deny the connection she felt. Just as she was lost in her thoughts, the sound of footsteps reached her ears. She turned to see Liam standing in the doorway, his usual confident smile softening when he saw her. "Hey, how's the latest piece coming along?" he asked, stepping into the room. Emily smiled, though it was a little more nervous than usual. "It's almost done. Just trying to figure out the final touches." Liam nodded, walking over to the painting and studying it. "It's incredible, Emily. You've really outdone yourself." Emily's heart warmed at his words. She wasn't used to receiving such praise, especially not from someone like Liam. "Thanks," she said, her voice soft. "I couldn't have done it without your help." The The silence between them stretched for a moment before Liam spoke again. I don't think you give yourself enough credit. You've worked hard for this, and you're making it happen. I just gave you a push. Emily felt her chest tighten. It's more than just a push, she replied, turning to face him. You believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. That's more than a push. It's everything. Liam took a step closer, his gaze locking with hers. I'm glad I could help, he said quietly. But you know, you've always had it in you. You just needed the right opportunity. Emily swallowed hard, the words she had been holding in for weeks suddenly bubbling to the surface. Liam, I don't know how to say this, but I can't help the way I feel. I've tried to keep it professional, but the truth is, I'm starting to feel something more for you. Something I can't ignore anymore. Liam's expression softened, his eyes filled with something that made Emily's heart race. For a moment, there was silence, and Emily wondered if she had said too much. But then, to her surprise, Liam smiled gently. I'm glad you said that, he murmured. Because I feel the same way. Emily's breath caught in her throat. You do? Liam nodded, stepping closer to her. I've been trying to figure it out too. I didn't want to make things complicated, especially with everything you're doing with your studio. But the truth is, I care about you, Emily. More than just as someone I'm helping. Emily felt her heart flutter in her chest, the weight of his words sinking in. She had been so afraid of crossing that line, of letting her feelings for him interfere with everything they had built together. But now, hearing him say that, she realized that she wasn't alone in her feelings. I don't want to rush anything, Liam continued, his voice sincere. But I want you to know that I'm here for you, professionally and personally, whatever you need. Emily's mind raced as she processed everything he had said. This was everything she had wanted, everything she had dreamed of. But the fear of ruining their connection still lingered. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Scared of what this could mean. Scared of what might happen to everything we've worked for. Liam reached out, taking her hand gently in his. I understand, Emily. But sometimes, the best things in life come when we stop being afraid and take a chance. We've already built something amazing together, and I believe we can build even more, together. Emily looked up at him, her heart filled with hope and uncertainty. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, love and success could go hand in hand. And as she looked into Liam's eyes, she knew that this was just the beginning of something new, something real. As the weeks went on, Emily and Liam's connection deepened. They began spending more time together, not just discussing business or art, but talking about their lives, about their hopes, their fears, and everything in between. For Emily, it felt like something she had never experienced before. She had always kept people at a distance, focused on her work, on survival. But with Liam, it was different. She found herself opening up in ways she had never imagined. One evening, as the sun set behind the skyline, casting a golden glow over the city, Emily found herself standing in front of her easel, working on a new painting. It was one of those rare moments when she felt completely at peace, lost in her work. The door to the studio creaked open, and Liam walked in, holding 2 cups of coffee. He smiled when he saw her, the familiar warmth in his eyes. I brought you some coffee, he said, setting the cups down on the counter. I thought you could use a break. Emily smiled back, grateful for the gesture. Thank you, she said, stepping away from the canvas and taking a seat. They sat together in silence for a few moments, sipping their coffee, the quiet hum of the city outside filling the space. Emily felt a sense of calm settle over her. But there was something else, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. She had been thinking a lot about their relationship, about what was happening between them, and she knew that she couldn't keep ignoring the feelings that had been growing inside her. Liam, she began, her voice soft but steady. I've been thinking a lot lately about us. Liam looked up, his eyes attentive. What do you mean? He asked, his tone gentle. Emily hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to express the words that had been swirling in her mind. I'm scared, she admitted. Scared that things are moving too fast, that maybe I'm getting in over my head. I've never been in a relationship like this before, and I don't know how to handle it. Liam set his coffee down and moved to sit beside her, his hand resting on hers. Emily, I understand your fears. I'm not asking you to rush into anything, and I'm not going anywhere. I care about you, and I want to take things at your pace. Emily looked at him, her heart swelling with emotion. But I'm not sure what pace that is, she confessed. I've always been independent, and I've never allowed anyone to get too close. And now, with you, it feels like everything is changing, and I don't know if I'm ready for that. Liam smiled softly, his thumb brushing over her hand in a comforting gesture. Change can be scary, but it can also be beautiful. I'm not asking you to change who you are or to give up your independence. I just want to be there for you, to support you in whatever way you need. Emily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that she didn't have to do this alone. She didn't have to push Liam away, didn't have to keep him at arm's length. Maybe, just maybe, she could let him in. I've never had someone like you in my life, she said quietly. You make me want to be better, to believe in myself in ways I never have before. But I also don't want to lose myself in this, in us. Liam nodded, understanding her hesitation. You won't lose yourself, Emily. I would never ask you to change who you are. You're perfect just as you are. Emily looked at him, her chest tightening with emotion. She didn't know where their relationship was going or what the future held. But for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. She felt like she was finally allowing herself to open up, to trust, and to let someone in. As they sat there together, surrounded by the quiet peace of the studio, Emily realized that she didn't have to be afraid of change. She didn't have to face it alone. With Liam by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. Slowly, she leaned in and kissed him, a gentle affirmation of what they had together. And for the first time, she didn't feel scared anymore. She felt at home. As the months passed, Emily and Liam's relationship grew stronger, and so did Emily's confidence. The art studio was thriving, and with Liam's continued support, she was able to hold her first exhibition. The opening night was a huge success, with local art enthusiasts and some of Liam's connections showing up. Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. She had worked so hard for this moment, and now it was finally here. Liam stood beside her, proud of everything she had achieved. You did it, Emily, he said, his voice filled with admiration. This is just the beginning. Emily smiled, feeling a rush of emotion. I couldn't have done it without you, she replied, her voice steady but filled with gratitude. As the night wore on, Emily found herself surrounded by people who appreciated her work, and she couldn't believe how far she had come. But it wasn't just the exhibition that had changed her life. It was the relationship she had with Liam. She had never imagined she would find someone like him, someone who believed in her, supported her dreams, and made her feel like she mattered. But now, with the studio thriving and their connection deepening, Emily realized that she had found something even more precious than her dream job. She had found love. As they stood there, in the midst of the celebration, Liam took her hand and led her to a quieter corner of the gallery. The noise of the event seemed to fade away as they stood there, looking at each other. There's something I've been wanting to ask you, Liam said, his voice low but full of sincerity. Emily looked up at him, her heart racing. What is it? Emily, he began, taking a deep breath. I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything we've been through together, and I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what. I care about you deeply. Emily felt her chest tighten. She had always been cautious with her feelings, always afraid to let someone in. But with Liam, it felt different. I care about you too, Liam, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. More than I ever thought possible. Liam smiled, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Emily, I know we've only been together for a short time, but I can't imagine my life without you in it. Will you marry me? Emily's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't been expecting this. Not tonight. Not when everything was still so new. But as she looked at Liam, she realized that this was the next step in their journey. She had spent so long building her career, focused on her independence, that she hadn't thought about how much she needed love in her life. And now, standing here with Liam, she realized that he was the person who had shown her what love really was. Unconditional, supportive, and real. Yes, Emily whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Yes, I will marry you. Liam's eyes lit up with joy, and he pulled her into a gentle embrace, holding her close as the world around them seemed to disappear. The gallery, the guests, the success of the exhibition, it all faded away in that moment, leaving only the two of them. As they held each other, Emily realized that this was the beginning of a new chapter. It wasn't just about the studio or the success she had achieved. It was about building a life with someone who truly cared for her, someone who saw her for who she was and loved her for it. It was about finding balance between her career, her passions, and the love she had found in Liam. The rest of the night passed in a haze of celebration, but Emily couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. She was going to marry Liam. The thought both excited and terrified her, but as she looked at him, she knew she was ready for whatever came next. She had found her place in the world, and it wasn't just in the studio or in her work. It was with Liam, building a future together. Months passed, and Emily and Liam's life together began to settle into a new rhythm. The studio was flourishing beyond her expectations, with more visitors than she had ever dreamed of. Each day brought something new, new clients, new opportunities, and a sense of pride in what she had built. Yet, no matter how busy they were, Liam made sure they always spent time together. Their relationship had become a true partnership, built on trust, love, and mutual respect. Emily couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. Just a year ago, she was struggling to get by, feeling like an outsider in the world of art, unsure of her place. Now, she had not only found her footing in the art world, but also in love. With Liam by her side, she felt stronger, braver, and more capable of facing whatever the future held. One afternoon, as they sat in the small cafe they often visited, Emily looked across the table at Liam, the man who had believed in her from the very beginning. He was smiling at her, his eyes filled with affection. It was a quiet moment, but one that spoke volumes. "Do you ever think about how much has changed?" she asked, her voice soft. Liam set his coffee cup down and leaned back in his chair. "All the time," he said, his gaze steady. "When I first met you, I had no idea how much you would change my life. You've made me see the world in a completely different way. I've learned so much from you, Emily." Emily smiled, her heart swelling with love. "I couldn't have done it without you. You helped me find the courage to chase my dreams, to believe in myself. You've always been there for me, even when I didn't think I could ask for help." Liam reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "You've always had it in you, Emily. I just gave you a little push, that's all. But everything else, you did it yourself. You've built something amazing here, and you've done it with your heart." Emily squeezed his hand, feeling a rush of emotion. "I know it hasn't always been easy," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I wouldn't change a thing. I've learned so much about myself, and about us. I know now that I can take on anything, as long as I have you by my side." Liam smiled softly, his eyes filled with warmth. "And you always will. I'm not going anywhere." A sense of peace washed over Emily as she looked at him. They had been through so much together, and there was still so much more ahead. But she no longer felt afraid of what the future might bring. She had built something beautiful with Liam, not just in her career, but in her heart. Later that year, they found themselves standing together on the rooftop of Liam's apartment building, overlooking the city that had witnessed their journey. The lights of the city sparkled below them, and the cool evening breeze tousled Emily's hair. Liam stood behind her, his arms around her waist as they looked out at the view. "I never thought I'd be here," Emily said softly, gazing at the skyline. "This feels like a dream." Liam pressed a kiss to the back of her neck. "It's real, Emily, and it's ours." The moment felt perfect, and Emily knew it was just the beginning of their new chapter. They had faced challenges, but they had grown stronger, together. Emily had found her place in the world, not just as an artist, but as a woman who had learned to trust, to love, and to allow herself to be loved in return. With Liam by her side, she knew they could face whatever came next. She turned in his arms, facing him, her heart full. "I'm so glad we found each other," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Liam smiled, cupping her face gently. "Me too. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you know how much you mean to me." In that moment, surrounded by the city lights, Emily knew that everything she had worked for, everything she had hoped for, had led her to this. She was exactly where she was meant to be. And for the first time in a long time, she knew that her future was bright, not because of what she had achieved, but because of who she had become and the love she had found with Liam.